You know, I still remember the first time that I ever heard the song Drifting by Andy McKee. I was probably about 14 years old. I was sitting in the sort of the fellowship hall of this church that I went to, and I remember watching that video and being blown away that someone would have the capacity to play a song on the guitar that felt like they were doing three different things at one time. It kind of blew my mind. It still blows my mind to this day. When I think back to that memory, I think about that being a pivotal moment in my journey as a player. I had already been playing for a couple of years, and so I knew some chords and I knew some scales and I could play some solos, but I really didn't think of myself as any particular type of guitar player. But I knew sort of at that moment everything was going to pretty much change about my playing. Fast forward a handful of years, our youth band did not have a piano player. So we were a very small kind of ragtag group of guys and gals, but we didn't have a piano player. We didn't have anyone to play keys. Long story short, we're playing this song called Give Me Faith. And in this song, Give Me Faith, there is a beautiful piano intro. And this piano intro is kind of the hook of the song. It's kind of the signature of the tune. And at some point, I had started to play around with this idea of that piano hook, but on guitar, and it sounds like this. Nothing particularly extraordinary about that, or extraordinary. It was something that I had really put a lot of time into, put a lot of effort into. And so I played it. So when we did that song in our youth group, that's what I did. I played that part. But it made me sort of, again, reconsider what's the job of the guitar? What's the role that a guitar can play? And so that was a big moment for me. Now, how that ties into today, what I want to give to you is a little bit of an introduction to an introduction of arranging on the guitar. In this video, you're going to get a very surface level view at arranging. So hopefully in the days to come, I'm going to be having more videos up that will be a little bit more in depth, but at least for today, you're going to get an idea of some of the things that I think are going to help you learn how to arrange for the guitar. So as I mentioned earlier, when I came across this guitar player named Andy McKee, one of the first big revelations was that his guitar was tuned differently than mine. He had made some sort of adjustment to his instrument that gave him some sort of an advantage or gave him some sort of a jump on arranging. I just knew that he was able to get melody and bass and chords all onto the same instrument and do it like with precision and fluidity. So let's take a look at a couple of tunings that we're going to use for arranging on the acoustic guitar. To begin with, the one that you're probably not expecting to start the video off with is standard, E, A, D, G, B, E. Now, standard tuning was the first tuning that I ever learned to arrange in. I think it's the one that everyone should begin with, mainly because it's the one we're going to use the most. You already know chords in standard tuning. You already know some of the scale shapes probably in standard tuning, so you have an advantage there for sure. Just to kind of sell it a little bit for you, standard tuning is a great place to start because standard tuning gives us plenty of options for getting melody and chords and bass all together in the same piece. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. So here in the key of G, nothing to it. I can simply add in some bass notes to that. Getting a little more developed out. I can add a little bit of filler. Now I'm getting something a little bit more dynamic. Standard tuning is a fantastic tuning to arrange in for a myriad of reasons, but the first one just being the fact that you probably already possess about 70% of what you need to know to get started. All right, so let's take a look at D tunings. Now when I say D tunings, I'm lumping in open D and DADGAD. The reason I'm lumping those together is because I kind of use them interchangeably. When I'm tuning my guitar or thinking about a D tuning, it's essentially going to behave as though the one or whatever key we're in will be outlined by this low string. In open D, we're looking at treating it as if we're in the key of D, so we're in this, this key. For open D, it's D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. For DADGAD, it's kind of like in the name, so DADGAD is D, A, D, G, A, D. For that tuning, the only difference is we're leaving the third string from standard as G. So some of the advantages of D tuning, you're going to have 3 ones or roots in the open strings. So for example, 6, 4, and 1 are all going to be Ds. So even if I capo and move up the neck, it's going to be the same thing. So all 3 of those strings are all going to be the 1, which means that everything that I play is going to be nice and consonant. So with that being said, let's demonstrate a little bit of how open D works for arranging. Let's take the same tune. Let's take Twinkle Twinkle Little Star for a spin. There's our melody. Let's add the bass line. And a little embellishment. We get a little bit more movement, same melody, and everything works nice and good. All right, and last but not least, this is a tuning that I really enjoy using. I don't have a name for this tuning. I'm sure there is one. You could Google it. I should have Googled it before I made the video, but it's too late now. This is what I would consider to be a G tuning. So I'm actually going to name it to you starting from the 5th string, and then we're going to talk about the 6th string. So starting from string 5, I have G, D, G, B, D. So this is an open G chord. If I play the low 6th string, I've tuned this all the way down to C. So I get this low C. Now, you might be wondering, Jacob, in the last part of the video, you just mentioned, a D tuning, the low string, like that's the key you're in. Let me explain. A really easy way to think about this is the fact that since I have the notes of a G chord in 5 of the strings, the 6th string in this tuning is tuned down to C. So if I'm thinking about this being a G tuning, then this is the 4. So the bass note that I'm going to get in the low 6th string is going to be the 4 of the key. Any of the arrangements that I play, any of the chord shapes that I play, I just want to factor that in. I want to think about this being the low bass note for the 4 in the key. So let's demonstrate that same tune, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Here's our melody. With the bass notes. With a little bit of embellishment. And I get a nice little arrangement out of that as well. In conclusion, each one of these tunings serves a purpose. What we didn't get into today is what is going to be coming in the next couple of videos in this little series. That's going to sort of take a deeper look at each tuning, standard and D tunings and this G tuning. And it's going to start to unpack a little bit of maybe how we can approach creating our own arrangements. But I actually want to answer the question, what is an arrangement? What is arranging? Arranging is the concept of taking multiple elements of a song and putting them together in your own way. We took Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the melody and the bass line, and we kind of smashed them together and we created this part. That's what arranging is. That's all it is. So when you see somebody slapping the guitar or turning the tuners to make the guitar do all sorts of funny things, that's all that's happening. It's just arranging. That's what it is. They took that song and they made their own arrangement of it. You can do the same thing too. So here are some next steps for you. In the description of this video are going to be some links to some PDFs of all the arrangements that we did today of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and each of the 3 tunings that we did them in. And what I want you to do is learn them. If you haven't played like that before, that's okay. It's a good opportunity for you to start. The second thing is I'm going to encourage you to learn some other arrangements. When you go on to YouTube or when you find a cool acoustic version of a song that you think is really cool, you should learn it. It's one of the best things that a guitar player can do is learn somebody else's stuff. That's why we're all here. I'm still doing the same thing myself. I hope this was helpful. That's all for this video. I really appreciate you watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Keep jamming.